The alien queen returned to her palace without warning. No message, no guards, no royal announcement. She arrived in silence, stepping out of her dark shuttle and into the long hallway of her home. She had been gone for only 3 days, but something deep in her heart told her something was wrong. It was a strange feeling she could not ignore. The palace usually felt alive. Lights stayed bright, workers moved fast. Guards stood tall at every door. But today, everything looked different. The lights were low. The air felt cold. The long halls were empty. No footsteps. No voices. No welcoming bow from her staff. The queen stopped walking and listened carefully. She heard nothing. Not even the soft hum of the palace machines. Her claws slowly tightened. A quiet fear moved through her chest. She continued forward, her royal cape brushing the floor. As she entered the main chamber, she finally noticed something that made her heart jump. The door to her children's room, her 4 newborn quadruplets, was half open. This door was never left open. It was always guarded by 2 soldiers and locked by royal code, but now it was open just enough for a thin line of light to escape. The queen felt her heartbeat rise. She stepped closer, her movements slow and controlled. She pushed the door a little wider. And then she froze. Inside the room, she saw something she had never expected in her life. There, sitting on the soft carpet, was the human janitor, the lowest worker in the entire palace. A simple man assigned to clean floors and windows. A man no one ever noticed. And in his lap were her children, her royal quadruplets. One baby rested on his shoulder, sleeping peacefully. Another lay across his arm, holding onto his shirt with tiny fingers. The third sat against his chest, eyes half open. The fourth, the smallest, was crying softly while the janitor gently patted its back. The queen could not understand what she was seeing. Her mind refused to accept it. How could this man, this ordinary human, be holding the most important children in the galaxy? Where were the guards? Where were the nurses? Why was he alone with them? Her first instinct was anger. Her claws shook. Fire rose inside her chest. In her culture, no one touched the royal heirs without permission. It was a crime. A dangerous act. A sign of betrayal. But then something stopped her. Her quadruplets were calm. Not crying. Not scared. Not uncomfortable. They looked safe. They looked happy. It confused her even more. The royal nurses always struggled to calm the children. They cried for hours. They hated being touched by strangers. But here they were resting without fear in the arms of a janitor. The queen stepped forward slowly. The janitor looked up, shocked to see her. His eyes widened. He quickly stood up but held the babies carefully, making sure none of them slipped or woke up. His voice shook as he tried to speak. "Your Majesty, please, I can explain." The queen's eyes were sharp. Her voice was low and cold. "Explain? You will explain everything." The janitor swallowed hard. His face showed fear. But also something else, something the queen had never seen from workers at his level. It was honesty. "I did not mean to touch them," he said softly. "But something happened after you left." The queen felt her breath catch. Something happened? The fear in her heart grew stronger. What happened in this palace while I was gone? She demanded. The janitor looked down at the babies in his arms, then back at the queen. No one was here to protect them. Those words cut through the queen like a blade. She took a step closer. Her eyes scanned every corner of the room. She finally noticed things she had missed at first. The overturned chair, the broken security scanner, a faint burn mark on the wall near the window. Her palace was not simply quiet. It had been disturbed. Something or someone had been inside this room, and the only one who stayed with the children was this human janitor. The queen stared at him, confused, suspicious, and shaken. She did not know whether he was a threat or a guardian. She only knew one thing. Nothing in her palace was normal anymore, and whatever happened next would change everything. The queen stood still, her eyes locked on the janitor who held her quadruplets. The quiet room felt heavy, as if the walls were waiting for the truth to come out. Her 4 babies clung to him in a way she had never seen before, like they trusted him, like they needed him. The queen's voice broke the silence. "Tell me everything, now." The janitor nodded, his hand steady even with the weight of the infants. He took a slow breath. His voice was calm, but she could see fear hiding behind his eyes. "Your Majesty, it began on the first night after you left." The queen narrowed her eyes. "Go on." He looked down at the smallest baby, still resting on his shoulder, then spoke again. "I was cleaning the east corridor when I heard a strange alarm from the royal nursery. I thought it was some kind of mistake. The alarms almost never activate, but then I heard crying." He paused, remembering the moment. It wasn't normal crying, it was loud, painful, like they were scared. The queen felt her chest tighten. Her children rarely cried that way unless something truly frightened them. "I ran to the nursery," he continued, "but when I reached the door, the guards were gone. The nurses were gone. The hallway was empty, just like today." The queen's claws curled slightly. Guards missing? Nurses missing? That was impossible. Her palace security was the strongest in the empire. And then, the janitor whispered, the lights went out. He looked up slowly, meeting the queen's sharp gaze. The whole palace went dark. The queen felt a cold rush move through her body. A palace-wide shutdown was not an accident. It required someone with high authority, someone inside the palace. What happened next? She demanded. The janitor swallowed. "I pushed the nursery door open and used my flashlight. The babies were floating in their pods, crying so hard their voices cracked. And someone else was inside the room." The queen's heart stopped for a moment. "Someone?" she repeated. "Yes," he said. "A shadow, a tall figure standing near their pods. I couldn't see who it was, but I knew they were not supposed to be there." The room felt colder now. "I shouted at them," the janitor said, his voice shaking slightly. "I don't know why. I wasn't brave, I was scared, but I shouted anyway." The queen watched him carefully. He was telling the truth. She could hear it in his voice, see it in his eyes. What did the intruder do? She asked. The janitor breathed out slowly. "They moved fast. Too fast. They tried to open the padlocks. Your babies cried louder. I didn't think. I just grabbed the closest thing I had, a metal cleaning rod, and I swung it at the figure." He raised his arms slightly to show where he had been cut. "They hit me back, hard. I fell. But I got up again. I kept swinging. The babies kept screaming. And then, the intruder left through the window." The queen turned sharply to the burn mark on the wall, the one she had seen earlier. It made sense now. Someone had blasted there. "Way out. But why were you still with them now?" she asked, her voice softer but still firm. The janitor looked down at the children again. "After the intruder escaped, the babies would not calm down. They cried whenever I stepped away. They reached for me. The smallest one held my finger and would not let go. He touched the little one's head gently. I stayed with them through the night. I cleaned their pods, fed them the emergency milk. Pax sang to them, because no one else came." The queen felt something shift inside her. Her anger was still there, but now another feeling began to grow, confusion, mixed with something almost like respect. "How long were you alone with them?" she asked. He looked up at her, tired but steady. 3 days. The queen inhaled sharply. 3 days. 3 days her palace staff failed. 3 days her newborn heirs were protected only by a human janitor. "And you told no one?" she asked. "I tried," he said. "But the communication screens didn't work. The guard station was empty. Every door to the upper levels was sealed. I thought someone wanted me to fail. Someone wanted the babies alone. The Queen stepped closer, her face inches from his. You kept them alive, she said quietly. The janitor lowered his head. I just did what I could, Your Majesty. The Queen looked at her quadruplets again, 4 small lives resting against a man who had never been trained to guard anyone, yet he had stood between them and danger, and he had not run. Something inside her changed at that moment. Her anger did not vanish, but it opened the door to a new fear and a new question. Who inside her palace wanted her children? The footsteps outside the nursery stopped. The Queen and the janitor stood side by side, both staring at the door. The Queen raised her claw slowly, ready to strike if anyone dared to enter. The janitor stepped slightly in front of the pod as if his body alone could shield the babies. For a long, tense moment, nothing happened. Then the footsteps faded, slowly moving away into the dark hallway. The Queen relaxed her claws, but not her suspicion. They are watching us, she whispered, waiting. The janitor swallowed nervously. Why do they want the baby so badly, Your Majesty? They're just newborns. The Queen looked at him carefully. She had tried to keep this truth hidden for as long as possible. Even most of her council did not know. Only a few trusted royal healers were aware, but this human had fought for her children. He had stayed awake 3 nights. He had held them, protected them, and risked his own life. He deserved to know. They are not ordinary children, she said slowly. The janitor frowned. What do you mean? The Queen walked to the pod and touched the glass gently. Her expression softened in a way the janitor had never seen before. They are born with ancient powers, she whispered. Powers that appear only once every 1,000 years. The janitor stared at her, unsure how to respond. The Queen continued, her voice quiet but strong. Each of my quadruplets carries a different ability: danger sense, emotional resonance, instinctive judgment, and one more that is still unknown. These powers make them precious and dangerous. The janitor looked at the sleeping infants inside the pod, suddenly realizing the weight of everything. Who would want to take them? He asked softly. The Queen turned her gaze away, her jaw tightening. Anyone who wishes to control the future, she said. Leaders, rebels, even members of my own council. The janitor froze. Her own council? People she trusted? Yes, the Queen said, as if she read his thoughts. Someone inside my palace is hungry for power. She paused for a moment, then spoke even more quietly. And there is another reason they want the children. The janitor lifted his head. What reason? The Queen looked directly into his eyes. They bonded with you. The janitor blinked, confused. Bonded with me? Yes, she said. My children's abilities mark emotional intention. They can sense truth from lies, fear from courage. They can see the heart of a person without words. She stepped closer, and they chose you. The janitor shook his head quickly. Your Majesty, I don't understand. I'm just a janitor. I clean floors, I fix lights. I am not special. The Queen touched the pot again. When the intruder attacked, my children reacted to your fear, but they did not fear you. They trusted you. That trust activated their powers early. They connected to you as if you were family. The janitor looked stunned. He felt his heartbeat pounding in his ears. I didn't do anything, he whispered. You did. Queen said softly. You fought for them. When every guard vanished, when the nurses fled, when the palace went dark, you stayed. He looked down at his hands, remembering the shaking, the fear, the desperation. I only wanted them to be safe, he said. That is exactly why they chose you, she replied. The Queen took a deep breath, then revealed something even she had not spoken aloud before. My youngest child, the one whose eyes glow, can see intention more clearly than any royal before. If someone wishes harm, she cries. If someone lies, she screams. But with you. The janitor lifted his eyes. She was calm, the queen said. She trusted you completely. That has never happened. Not even with my own counsel. The janitor felt a strange mix of pride and fear. What does this mean? He asked. The queen stepped back and looked at him with a serious, heavy expression. It means you are now part of this. Whether you want to be or not. The words hit him like a wave. He had stepped into something far larger than cleaning halls. Or fixing wires. He was now tied to royal blood. And royal danger. There is more, the queen added. The janitor's breath caught. More? She nodded slowly. My fourth child, the one whose power is unknown, reacted to you differently. Her eyes softened. She smiled at you. The janitor felt a strange warmth inside his chest. No one else has seen her smile, the queen whispered. Not even me. Silence filled the nursery. Then the queen looked up sharply, her expression returning to cold alertness. And that is why the traitor wants them, not just for power, but because you broke the pattern. Me? He whispered. Why me? Because if the children bond with a human, she said, the entire future of the kingdom may change. Before he could respond, a loud metallic sound echoed through the hallway. A door slammed open. Someone was inside the nursery wing. Again, the queen's eyes hardened. It begins, she whispered. The nursery door burst open with a sharp crash. The queen's claws snapped out, her body tense like a coiled spring. The janitor stepped in front of the pod, holding the babies close. His breathing was steady now, but his eyes were wide with fear. He had never faced someone like this, standing. In the doorway was a figure the queen recognized immediately. Her council member, the one she had trusted for years, stood tall, a wicked smile on his face. His hands held a strange device that hummed with energy. The intruder had come back. And this time he was ready. You, the queen hissed. You dared inside my nursery? The council member laughed. You were gone. Your precious children were unguarded. I thought your human friend here would fail. He pointed the device at the babies. I underestimated him. The janitor stiffened, but he did not step back. He had no weapon, only the metal rod he had bent in previous nights. Yet somehow he seemed fearless. His gaze met the queen's. Together, they stood as one in front of the babies, the queen's. Voice was low and sharp. You will not touch them. The traitor's smile widened. Oh, I already have a plan. They are valuable beyond measure. Their powers, their bond with the human. It is the key to controlling the future. The queen's tail lashed behind her. She lunged forward with lightning speed. Her claws slashed through the air. The traitor dodged, but the queen's movement was a warning. She would not hold back. The janitor swung his bent rod, not aiming to kill, only to protect. The first swing struck the device, sending sparks into the air. The council member staggered, surprised. He had not expected a human to fight. The babies inside the pod started to glow faintly. One by one, their tiny eyes shimmered with power. The room filled with an eerie blue light. The smallest baby, whose gift was danger sensing, cried out softly. The queen froze, realizing the baby had detected the council member's intent to harm them. The power of the children amplified the tension in the room. The council member growled, trying to aim the device again, but the queen moved faster, knocking it aside with her claws. Sparks flew, smoke filled the room. The janitor lunged at the council member, swinging the rod again, keeping him distracted while the queen advanced. You think you can control my children? The queen shouted. Their loyalty is not yours to take. The council member hissed and launched himself forward, but the janitor sidestepped, tripping him slightly. The queen seized the moment and struck his arm, sending the device clattering across the floor. The council member growled and tried to retreat, but the queen was relentless. She grabbed his collar and slammed him against the wall. He struggled, but he was no match for her strength. The janitor helped by grabbing his feet, holding him in place. They worked together, human and alien, protecting the babies and neutralizing the threat. The quadruplets watched from the pod, their tiny powers pulsating in response to the danger. The room seemed alive with energy as the queen's claws and the janitor's courage combined. Finally, the council member stopped struggling. He looked at the queen with a mixture of fear and disbelief. How could a human? He muttered. The queen's gaze was cold and unwavering. You underestimated the power of loyalty. You underestimated the bond between protector and child. And you underestimated me. The janitor let go, breathing heavily but still holding his ground. The babies crawled toward him inside the pod, their tiny hands reaching out as if to thank him. The queen watched, realizing something profound. The human had earned her trust and the trust of her children, something no council member or royal guard had done before. The council member was restrained with palace energy chains. The queen stepped closer, her eyes piercing his soul. Let this be a lesson. No one betrays my children. No one. The janitor, still holding the babies, looked at the queen. His chest heaved. I only did what I had to, he said quietly. The queen nodded. And that is why they chose you. The room was silent for a moment. The babies glowed softly, as if acknowledging the victory. The queen finally relaxed, though her eyes remained sharp, scanning the shadows for any other threats. The janitor looked exhausted, but proud. Together, they had protected the quadruplets from the palace's most dangerous traitor. The queen knelt slightly, looking at the janitor. Your courage has saved my children. And the future of this kingdom. He shook his head, humbled. I was just doing my job, Your Majesty. You were more than that, she said, her voice calm but full of authority. You were their protector. And now you are part of this family. The janitor looked at the babies, then at the queen. He had risked everything, yet somehow he had gained something far greater than any reward: trust, respect, and a bond that went beyond blood or species. The queen stood tall again, the janitor by her side, and the quadruplets safe in their pod. The battle was over, but the palace and the future had changed forever. The nursery was quiet now. The energy of the battle had faded, leaving only soft humming from the pods and the gentle glow of the baby's eyes. The council member, restrained by palace chains, glared from the corner, but he no longer mattered. The danger had passed for now. The queen stood tall, her sharp claws folded, her eyes softer than they had been in days. She looked at the janitor, the human who had risked his life for her children. She could see it clearly now. This man was no ordinary human. He was brave, loyal, and pure of heart. Her quadruplets crawled toward him inside the pod, their tiny hands reaching for his arms. The smallest one, whose power was still mysterious, gazed up at him with a faint glow in her eyes, a sign of trust, recognition, and something almost magical. The janitor bent down slightly, unsure what to do. He had never held royal infants before. He had never been part of anything this grand or dangerous. But he gently lifted each baby, one at a time, holding them close, rocking them softly. They clung to him as if he had been their protector forever. The queen's heart softened. She had watched countless humans, soldiers, and palace staff. Many had been loyal. Many had failed. But this one, this human had become something more. Not by rank, not by training, not by blood, but by courage and heart. She took a deep breath. You have earned something no one else has, she said, her voice calm but commanding. You have earned my trust, and the trust of my children. The janitor's eyes widened. Your Majesty, I did nothing special. I only tried to keep them safe. No, the queen said firmly. What you did was more than protection. You stood against danger when everyone else fled. You did not hesitate. You did not falter. My children bonded with you for a reason. That bond is sacred." The queen walked closer and gently placed a hand on the janitor's shoulder. Her touch was light, yet full of authority. "I hereby name you the royal guardian of the heirs." The janitor blinked. "Royal guardian, me? But I am just a janitor." "Yes," the queen said, her eyes serious. "A janitor who saved the future. A human who proved himself braver than any officer, any soldier, any council member. From this day forward, you are part of this family and part of this kingdom." The babies cooed and reached for him again, as if understanding her words. Their tiny hands pressed against his chest. The smallest one's glowing eyes shimmered brighter than ever. The janitor realized something incredible. The children truly accepted him. Not as a protector, but as one of them. The queen looked at the council member still restrained in the corner. "Let this be a lesson," she said coldly. "Betrayal will not be tolerated, and loyalty, true loyalty, will be rewarded." She turned back to the janitor and smiled faintly. "You will train to understand their powers, to protect them, and to prepare for the future. Together, we will ensure they grow strong and safe. And together, we will shape the destiny of our world." The janitor swallowed, feeling a mix of fear and pride. I will do my best, Your Majesty." "No," the queen said softly, placing her hand on his arm again. "You have already done more than your best. And that is why they chose you." The quadruplets crawled out of the pod fully now, giggling softly. One tiny hand grabbed his sleeve. Another held his finger, the third pressed against his chest, and the fourth rested its glowing forehead against his shoulder. The janitor laughed softly, tears welling in his eyes. He had never felt such warmth, such responsibility, such connection. The queen observed them all, realizing something she had never imagined possible. Her children had not only survived the attack, they had chosen the one human who could protect them with his heart. And in doing so, they had changed the rules of her kingdom forever. She straightened her posture and looked out the large nursery window. The palace lights glimmered, the horizon stretched wide, and the future seemed uncertain, but bright. The janitor held the babies close, looking at the queen. He understood now. This was more than duty. This was family. This was destiny. And in that moment, the queen smiled, a rare, gentle smile that few had ever seen. She knew that together, with the janitor by her side and her quadruplets growing strong, the kingdom would survive any danger. They had found strength and trust, courage and loyalty, and hope in the most unexpected place. The nursery was quiet, peaceful, and safe for now. But the bond they had formed would echo through the palace, through the kingdom, and through the future itself. The human janitor had saved her children. And in doing so, he had saved the heart of the entire empire. The queen, the janitor, and the quadruplets stood together, ready to face whatever came next. A new bond had been forged, a new future had begun, and the palace had never felt so alive. The queen stood silent after hearing the janitor's story. Her mind was full of questions, fear, and anger. But one thought kept returning again and again. Someone inside her own palace wanted her children. The idea made her chest tighten. She looked around the nursery again, the broken scanner, the burn mark near the window, the missing guards. Everything pointed to one truth. This was not a simple accident. This was planned. The janitor shifted nervously as the queen stepped further into the room. She moved with slow, sharp steps, studying every corner like a hunter searching for clues. "Your Majesty," the janitor said softly, "there is more." The queen stopped and turned her eyes toward him. "More? Speak." The janitor took a deep breath. "Every night after the first attack, I heard footsteps in the halls. Not normal walking, slow, careful, like someone was watching the nursery. The queen's claws slid out slightly, a sign of rising danger. "You did not follow them?" she asked. "No, your majesty," he answered honestly. "I could not leave the babies alone. They cried every time I stepped away." The queen looked at her quadruplets. They were still clinging to him, even now. Their small hands grabbed his shirt like they feared losing him. This made no sense to her. Alien royal infants never bonded. With humans, never. But her children had chosen this janitor as if he were part of their family. The queen lowered her voice. "What else did you see?" The janitor pointed to the window. "Every morning when I checked that spot, I found new marks. Burn marks. Someone was trying to melt the window frame. Maybe to break in again." The queen's eyes widened. "More attempts? After the first night?" Her fear turned into cold anger. "They were persistent," she muttered. "Yes," he replied. "And they came closer each time." The queen walked to the window and touched the marks with her claw. The metal felt rough, freshly damaged. Whoever tried to enter knew advanced weapon systems. This was not a normal thief. This was someone with training. Someone with high-level tools. Someone who knew the palace well. The queen turned back toward the janitor. "You said the nurses disappeared," she said. "How?" He nodded. "They were here the first night. But after I shouted for help, they ran out of the room. They said they would get the guards, but they never returned." The queen's expression darkened. "Nurses do not abandon royal infants," she said coldly, "unless they were ordered to." A heavy silence fell over the room. The janitor then said something that made the queen's blood run cold. "Your Majesty, I think the intruder had help from inside." The queen already knew this, but hearing it from him made the truth harder to ignore. She moved closer to him. "Did you see anything else unusual?" she asked softly. The janitor hesitated, then nodded. Double quotes yes, on the second night. "I saw someone standing at the end of the hallway." The queen's heart beat faster. "Who?" I could not see the face. "But the person wore an officer's cloak." "Palace officers don't visit the nursery at night." The queen took a step back, shocked. A palace officer? Someone with authority? Someone with access to all doors? She felt a cold fear settle inside her chest. Someone she trusted. Someone close. Had betrayed her. "Why didn't you call out to them?" she asked. "I tried," he whispered. "But when I blinked, they were gone. Like they vanished into the walls." The queen felt the weight of his words. Her palace was huge, full of hidden tunnels, secret corridors, and old service routes only officers knew about. If someone wanted to betray her, they would know exactly how to move without being seen. The queen looked at her quadruplets again. Their tiny bodies pressed against the janitor's chest. They trusted him because for 3 nights, he had protected them when everyone else failed. Then the queen noticed something she had missed earlier. The smallest baby's eyes were glowing faintly soft pale blue light. That was the mark of her species' rare ability, a danger sense. This baby could detect threats. The glow meant only one thing. The danger was still inside the palace. The queen's voice dropped to a whisper. "They are not safe yet." The janitor nodded. "I know." The queen stepped closer to him, lowering her head until her eyes met his. "You will tell me everything. Every sound, every shadow. Every moment from the last 3 days." "Yes, your Majesty." The queen straightened her posture. A new fire burned in her eyes, one of fierce protection. She would find the traitor. She would destroy them, but first, she had to understand why her babies chose this human janitor as their protector. Because in a palace full of danger, he was the only one they trusted. The queen stood tall in the nursery, her eyes sharper than blades. The janitor kept the babies close, gently rocking them as if he had done it his whole life. The queen noticed how naturally he moved, how carefully he held them, how the infants leaned into his warmth. It made no sense. Why would her royal quadruplets trust a human more than their own kind? She stepped closer, her voice low but firm. "You said you fought the intruder. Show me how." The janitor blinked, confused. "Your Majesty, I am not a fighter." "Yet you survived an attack," she replied. "Show me." He hesitated. Then he carefully placed the sleeping babies inside their safety pod and stood in front of her. His hands shook slightly. He looked nervous but determined. The Queen nodded. "Begin." The janitor lifted his cleaning rod, now bent from the struggle, and held it the same way he had during the attack. "I didn't think," he said. "I only reacted. The intruder stepped toward the pods, so I swung like this." He moved clumsily, but the Queen watched closely. His stance was weak, his footing uneven, and yet he had survived. "How did you block their strike?" she asked. He lifted his arm, showing a deep bruise. "I didn't block it well. Their hit made me fall, but I got up. I don't know how. I just had to protect them." The Queen stared at him, trying to understand. Many trained soldiers lost courage in real battles, but this human, fragile and untrained, had stood against someone powerful enough to break into her palace. Why? What made you stand up again? She asked. The janitor looked at the smallest baby, still holding his finger from inside the pod. "They were crying," he whispered, "and I couldn't let anything happen to them." The Queen felt a strange tug in her chest. She was not used to humans showing this kind of loyalty, especially not toward alien children. "Why do they trust you?" she asked, almost to herself. The janitor looked nervous again. I don't know, Your Majesty, but there's something you should see." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small recording device. It was old, scratched, and clearly not palace technology. "What is that?" the Queen asked. "A personal recorder. I use it to remind myself of work tasks." He pressed a button. A soft sound filled the room, 4 tiny voices crying, and then slowly calming down as the janitor hummed a quiet tune. The Queen listened closely. The music was simple, gentle, almost childlike, but something about it affected the babies deeply. She saw them move inside the pod, reacting to the sound even now. "When did they start reacting to this?" she asked. "The first night," he said. "I didn't know what else to do. I remembered this song from my childhood." He paused, then added quietly, "It made them stop crying." The Queen's eyes widened slightly. Royal infants did not bond easily. Their senses were sensitive. They could detect emotions, intentions, even small vibrations in sound. If this human song calmed them, it meant his heart was honest, pure, safe. She began to understand why her quadruplets chose him. But another question remained. "How did you survive 3 nights with no food or sleep?" she asked. The janitor gave a small, tired smile. "I didn't sleep much," he said. "I only closed my eyes when they slept. Every time I tried to rest, I heard footsteps again." The Queen felt a chill. The enemy had been watching them the whole time. Why didn't they attack again? She asked. The janitor hesitated. "I think they were afraid." "Afraid of what?" she demanded. "Of the babies," he whispered. The Queen's eyes narrowed. "What do you mean?" He pointed toward the smallest baby. On the second night, when the footsteps came close, the baby's eyes glowed, brighter than before. And then, the footsteps stopped. Like something pushed the intruder away. The Queen's heart pounded. Her youngest child's power was activating earlier than expected. A rare gift. And a dangerous one. "That is impossible," she whispered. The janitor shook his head gently. "No, Your Majesty. Your babies protected themselves. I think they protected me too." The Queen stared at him, shocked at the idea that her newborn quadruplets used their powers to shield a human. It meant their connection to him was deeper than trust. It was something else. Something stronger. Something even she could not explain. And suddenly, A loud noise echoed from the hallway. Both the queen and janitor turned, sharply. Footsteps, slow, heavy, coming toward the nursery. The queen's voice dropped to a whisper. "They are back." The janitor's face grew pale, and the danger that had been hiding in her palace was finally making its move.